Welcome back. Now, Mike McCormack is fast becoming one of Ireland's favourite authors with his latest offering, the stunning Solar Bones, having already won the Goldsmiths Prize and the BGE Irish Book of the Year award.
Now, this week, Solar Bones made the 13-strong long list for the prestigious Man Booker Prize, and Mike is hoping to emulate previous Irish winners, the likes of Anne Enright, Roddy Doyle and John Banville. You're certainly in good company there, Mike. Good morning.
Good morning.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much.
What an honour. Explain to us, we'll get to the book in a moment, which we have here, a fascinating read and something totally different, but what does this mean to you, to be on the long list for the Man Booker Prize?
Well, Solar Bones was published about a year ago, so to have this 1 year later, to have it kind of rejuvenated and people talking about it again and that's quite a long shelf life for a book. That's quite a long extended exposure for a book, just when the audience should be turning elsewhere to other books and that they kind of turned around again and the press turned around again and began to talk about it. It's a huge boost. It's brilliant, and you know, to have your book there among 12 or 13 other writers, several of whom I genuinely admire, and that's a real thrill.
It's a real honour.
Yeah, it is.
Mike, tell us about the book. What happens in Solar Bones? Who do we meet and where is it?
You meet the voice. The whole book is refracted through the voice of Marcus Conway, who is an engineer in County Mayo, my hometown in Louisburg. He's a civil engineer, and after one day, in an hour that's strung between the Angelus Bell and the 1 o'clock news, he starts remembering his whole life, from being a child to being a husband to being a father and everything. And he starts remembering his whole life, and he relives his whole life almost in 1 hour, that middle of the day hour before the 1 o'clock news.
It's like a ghost reflecting on his life. It is
very much a ghost reflecting. It's set on All Souls Day, which is the 2nd of November, and in my part of the world, in Mayo in the West, there is this belief that the dead can return for All Souls Day, that they can return to their house and that, and we leave out food and hospitality for them, and this is what happens to Marcus Conway when he turns up in his own house.
Now, when the idea for the book came into your head, was it one that arrived fully formed, or was it something that was knocking around in your head for years and going, you know, I must get to that at some stage? What way did the process work for you?
I've been a writer for 20 years, and there's certain things that I've always wanted to do. So you have an openness towards certain things, and I've always admired engineers. I tried to do engineering myself, and I failed at it, and I just didn't have the maths. And I went to college and stuck it for a couple of months. So I've always admired what engineers do, because quite some engineers make the world.
Yes.
And so I was always open towards being visited by an engineer, and then this engineer came to me, and I recognised an awful lot of the things about him. He's from my own area, and he was just a couple of years older than myself and so I started writing, and he stayed with me I was surprised when we finished the book, and I was asked to do a few editorial things. I found out that I'd spent at least 6 years writing the book.
Oh wow!
I couldn't believe that. If you told me, if you told me that, I would have said 3 years.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be much longer than that. Some of the internal things that says, Jesus, you've been at this a whole lot longer than you think you have.
And it's like a stream of consciousness. There's no full stops.
That's the way the book visited me. Yeah, that's the way he spoke, and that.
It's one sentence, the entire book.
It's not quite one sentence.
No.
It's actually...
There are commas.
There are commas.
And hyphens.
But it doesn't begin on a capital letter, and it doesn't end in a full stop. So to the best of my knowledge, the sentence goes on prior to you opening the book and continues on after you close the book as well. Okay. So it's just a section of a longer sentence.
But isn't that, I suppose, the nature of most novels, that you meet somebody at a particular point in time, and you follow them for a period, and then you leave them again. So that's the, I suppose, the classic form of the novel, but it's just presented in a very experimental, different way. Yeah,
and you're certainly right about you meet someone, because that's very much the way I felt. Like, I met this man and I talked to him, and I spent 5-6 years in his company, and he left, and I had this manuscript that was his gift to me and everything. He was a very real presence in my life for the years that I was with, the years that I spent talking to him and that. So he kind of lived with me.
The reviews that I've read have been glowing. I mean, there's one in The Guardian particularly, and they're kind of, hailing you as the novel is not dead. All hail King Mike McCormack.
Yeah.
He's brought it back to life. How does that make you feel when you read that sort of stuff?
Oh, I'm thrilled. That was an important review. It was the first. It was a couple of Irish newspapers had reviewed it, but that was the first newspaper review in Britain. You're always a bit anxious about it and that. And Samson, I think it was, who did it, and he's a critic who's pretty discerning on that. So, but he makes. I think it's made. Everyone talks about the experimental nature of the book and everything like that, but I think he in one part of the review as well, he makes the point that although it might be experimental, it's very readable, and the book has got this reputation for being generous to the reader. It draws the reader in and pulls the reader along with them on that, even though it is, as you say, it's one continuous flow.
I remember reading Irving Welsh's Trainspotting probably when it first came out, the first couple of years, and it's written in the Glaswegian dialect.
Yeah.
And the first 5 or 10 pages, you're kind of struggling, but then 5 pages later, you've kind of forgotten, and you've just gotten into the voice, and away you go. I believe it's the same. I've heard a lot of reports saying that that's how it works with Solar Bones as well. That's
right, yeah. And it takes 3 or 4 pages for it to pick up its proper rhythm, because the ghost enters and he's disoriented and a bit clueless and confused as to where he is and what he's doing and everything like that. But when he picks himself up and picks up his own rhythm and speech and gets a grasp of the situation, the book picks up a more flowing, continuous rhythm and that, and that's where it properly comes into itself.
I don't know if the analogy is correct, but sometimes like the best runs you will ever go for are ones where you start off and it's kind of, you're struggling a bit, and then you get into a flow.
I'll take your word from that. It's a long time since I've run.
You look fit enough, Mike. I just assumed you were a runner. I probably shouldn't do that.
It's actually one of the things that I used to be an athlete when I was a teenager and that, and sort of tried to pick it up again in middle age and think, not a chance.
The body doesn't work the same, does it?
Not at all, no. You're only codding yourself.
Everything is slower and harder, and the results are harder to achieve as well.
A tonic for our times, another critic has said about it. But at one point, I was very interested in this, you felt you couldn't give away your work. I mean, this is a lovely point to arrive at, and I don't want to end on a negative, but for people who are getting knockback after knockback out there in any industry, this is a brilliant story.
That was even that book went, it went around the world for sport, and publishers turned it down, and here, there, and everywhere, and that, and then it was picked up by a small publisher in Dublin called Tramp Press, and one of the curious things about the book is a book about masculinity, a book about being a husband and a father and everything like that. These are 2 women that went for it straight away, said, we love the book, and everything that the male publishers had moaned and griped about, they thought, no, we can go with that. We can run with that. They loved, really, just very brave and just saw no hindrance, and they put great trust in readers. They said, no, readers are up for this.
Respect your reader.
Yeah. They said readers will go for this. And
Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you. The very best to look. Next in October comes the shortlist for the prize, so hopefully we'll be announcing that on Ireland AM or Sunday AM as well. That you're on that as well. Mike McCormack, thanks a million.
Thank you very much.
Well done.